Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Delaware Orthopedic Specialists. Spring has officially sprung, and you know what that means. All the weekend warriors dusting off their gear and trying way too hard to relive the glory days, and you know what's going to happen. Hip, ankle, foot, leg, knee, shoulder, injuries. Where else should you go other than Delaware Orthopedic Specialists? I don't know. DOS has specialists trained in each and every part of the body, so you're getting a provider specifically assigned to that part of the body. Why would you trust anyone other than a specialist? The only fellowship-trained surgery center in the state of Delaware makes it a no-brainer. Head on over to delortho.com or give them a call at 302-655-9494. I'm telling you, my family's gone there. My friends have gone there. Check out their Google reviews. They are phenomenal. DOS. Don't trust anyone other than a specialist.
Welcome to Talkin 215, your go-to podcast for everything you need to know about Philly sports. Whether you bleed green, trust the process, fly with the Flyers, or fight with the Fightins, this is the place where we break down Broad Street. Jake, Shawn, and Joey deep dive into the heart of Philly sports culture, breaking down games, roster moves, and sharing the stories that make the 215 truly legendary. So grab a cheesesteak, settle in, and let's get to Talkin 215. Now here's your host, Jake Biasado.
What's going on, everybody? Talkin 215, back at it again. We got Shawn, Doc, and myself. Have a little bit of a smorgasbord of topics tonight. We got a little birds, little fills. NBA draft is live. By the time you listen to this, it will have already happened. We're going to be giving our live, again, not live to you, but our live reaction to the picks as they come in for our Philadelphia 76ers. And then we're going to talk a little Flyers as they made a good move this past week, and they are upcoming on their draft this weekend. Gentlemen, how are we feeling?
Hot.
Yeah,
I'm soaking. If you guys are just listening to it in the car or what have you, I am gleaming, glistening, whatever pejorative you want to use. I'm down in my basement. It is 100 degrees. It's still probably 85 down here right now. So your boy is sweating throughout this podcast.
Nice. I'm cool, calm, and collected. I'm just waiting to see what the Sixers do. Ball of excitement.
That's our Doc. Yeah, Shawn, you're going through it there. Yeah, for the people that really follow me on a more personal life basis, they know I played in a golf tournament the past 2 days. So that's Monday, Tuesday. It was 102 real temperature, real feel of 108. Let's just say I played hot, and it wasn't good. I did not play well, but I played hot. I was not ready for that, and I'm a very sweaty guy. And so it was a struggle. It was certainly a struggle. Certainly similar to what the Phillies did last night. So many runners on base, so many failed opportunities. Ranger Suarez goes out there, wastes 7 2/3 of a wonderful outing just because the Phillies just had a selfish approach. Nobody was patient. You had Johan Rojas, 2-0 count, swings at a ball that was probably thrown in Philadelphia with how far off the plate it was. Could have been 3-0. Woulda, coulda, shoulda changed the outcome of that game. But look, we see this team go on these great runs. I think we're back to tied for first in the NL East. Still a very good baseball team. But we see them go on these great runs. We're putting up big numbers against pretty good teams. And then it's just a complete and utter opposite the very next night. Does it make any sense to you all?
Well, I mean, when you take a look at it, it seems like this team hasn't been able to hit Framber Valdez for what feels like a decade. I mean, the guy's only 31, but I feel like he's been crushing us for since like the 90s at this point. And he didn't have his stuff. He didn't have his stuff at all. He was throwing everything almost dead center or a foot off of the plate through the first, 4 2/3 of the game, 4 2/3 innings. And it was just frustrating to see so many different balls get put over the plate. The guys dancing, jumping off of the mound every other pitch because he completely missed his location. And we didn't capitalize. We let that completely shut us down.
Yeah. No, it's a shame when you have guys that just don't have it. And the Phillies offense seems to be the number one team in the MLB to let people just get into a rhythm. Like they will have times where just guys are just missing, throwing meatballs. And it seems like 75% of the time, the Phillies will just be like, no, this isn't fair. The guy doesn't have it. He's a much better pitcher than this. Let's get him let's let him acclimate, figure out what's going on, let him get his mechanics back. And we'll let him start figure things out. And then come fourth or fifth inning, he started pitching better, and we still decided to do absolutely nothing against him. But again, like it's weird because the other 25% of the time they'll go off for 10 runs, 4 runs in the first inning, 6 runs in the fifth, just random things. It just does not make sense how this team is so hot and cold.
Well, you just look at the Mets series, win 10-2, get their butts whooped on Saturday, and then crush them on Sunday. It's like day to day how they hit. And it's amazing that Saturday game. It's like, Kyle Schwarber has a chance to just get back into the game. And he just swings at something and falls on his knees. And it's just like, the discipline, they need to learn better discipline at the plate. I think that's a big problem with this team.
I mean, I think just over that Mets series, I mean, they were on national TV all weekend. Pain in the ass, by the way. Okay, it's one of the biggest series of the season so far, maybe the biggest. And we don't even see our hometown announcers at all, right? We got 3 national TV crews. It just kind of, I don't want to say it ruined the mood, but it just really didn't put me in the right place to watch these games. And it seems like the team just kind of blew their load and was due to have a dud. Right. It was a lot of high adrenaline games, people playing big. And, last night you saw one person step up to the plate, not physically, but metaphorically. And that was Ranger. Right. Ranger pitched his ass off, and it was for nothing. It happens from time to time. And that was just one of those times.
Yeah, no, it's funny. We all can agree that Caleb Cotham, great pitching coach. I mean, he's turned so many great pitchers in the starting rotation. We've had up and down in the bullpen, but really around the league, people say Caleb Cotham is one of the better positional coaches in the game. At what point is Kevin Long's leash done? Like, how long of a leash does this guy get? Is it truthfully these players just absolutely adore this man and they don't want to throw off any kind of vibes or anything? I haven't heard anybody other than Rob Thompson say, oh, I think Kevin Long's the greatest hitting coach in all of baseball. Yeah, I get it. You defend your guys and everything, but that's a little excessive. That's a little over the top when you have guys where only one player that's eligible, like over 100 ABs or something on the Phillies, has a better OPS than they did last year. Like, everybody else is having a worse year. And you go out and say, oh, we have the greatest hitting coach in baseball. Max Kepler looks lost out there every single game. You've seen no improvement from Stott. From his rookie year was his best season hitting. Has seen no change in him whatsoever. Schwarber, he hits home runs, but it's still his OPS is down. Everybody's struggling. At what point do we have to say, hey, we got to get somebody else in here?
Well, first off, to answer your question, I think Rob Thompson loves the guy. Right. For whatever reason or next, the reason why I brought him on, that personal connection, I feel like certainly runs pretty deep. But I always kind of harken back to a quote that Whit Merrifield said, hey, being the hitting coach is the worst job in baseball, pretty much. Like, you just come up with the game plans. You take a look at the starting pitcher and you say, okay, against lefties, this guy really likes fastballs with a 3-2 count. And then it's up to your guys to remember, right? Or write it down, what have you. So, at some point you have to think it's some of the leaders on this team, right? Yeah. That has to also manage the younger guys, right? There's no reason why a guy like Bryce Harper shouldn't be talking to Stott, right? 2 at bats in, going, hey man, what are you doing swinging at that first pitch? He hasn't thrown, a fastball with a 0-0 count all game. Like, so at some point you also have to start chatting about, okay, so, what are your veterans doing? There's too many of them for them to not be picking up on some of these things and looking at the tablets throughout the innings, especially when you got a guy, I'm going to go back to Bryce Harper, who hasn't been playing. Yeah. What are you doing? What are you doing? You are that veteran leader.
And Bryce Harper, who, has been known to be a guy that picks up on every little pitcher tendency. I mean, he was the guy that picked up on the Astros pitcher in the World Series, tipping his pitches, calling everybody over, kind of hush, hush, letting them know, like, this guy. And people have said before that this guy can notice everything so quickly and just really notices the tiny little differences in all these pitches. You're telling me he's not sitting there watching everything and being like, hey, for what it's worth, this is what I'm seeing. Everybody in the locker room, regardless of who it is going to respect him. He's Bryce stinking Harper. He's essentially the captain of your team, and he's sitting in the dugout. And again, he very well may be doing this, but you'd think that somebody would be picking up on it. You think they'd be like, oh, check out this. Hey, John, check out what Harper was doing in between at-bats here. You see Stott and him over with the tablet talking about blah, blah, blah. No, you're not hearing any of that. And so you bring up a great point there that they need to do something. And we've seen throughout these struggles all year, we've kind of talked about like, hey, who's going to step up and be the leader on this team? Like Schwarber is always known to be the guy when you hear reports of like the players only meeting, Schwarber is the guy that leads it and everything. But it just seems like they'll have these runs where people are just like, well, baseball's hard. It happens. We'll get them next time. And I get it. It's one of the hardest things in all of professional sports is hitting a baseball. Like it is. But these guys see these pitchers many times. They have up and down performances against Cy Young candidates and then get completely mowed down by guys with 8.5 ERAs.
Yeah, I mean, and we certainly have seen Schwarber step up. I don't even know if it's step up, but performance-wise, I mean, year over year, he's having what seems to be a career season at this point, right? So, and this certainly feels like at least his play on the field, and we really don't know if it could be in this case. We'll stick with the same example. If Harper is going over to Bryson Stott saying, "Hey, listen, X, Y, Z," and then Stott's just not effectively being able to produce that, or to take that coaching cue and effectively execute. So we don't know. We don't know if it's a Harper thing or a Stott thing for this instance. So I don't know. I mean, this team definitely has some decisions to make over this offseason, right? A question we posed on the podcast earlier today, and I'll ask you two. I don't know if you guys have fleshed out a full answer, but we've got a couple guys in Schwarber and Ranger Suarez that are both up for free agency this offseason. So, I mean, if first off, what do you foresee this Phillies team doing with them? And if you had to pick one, who would you pick?
I think, and this is just right off the cuff, I think that, Ranger's pitching great and he's up for free agency. Like you said, he's prone to injury. So I would sell high on Ranger. I know that's probably a bad pick, but you can get the most juice from him, and he's going to demand a lot of money based on his performance this year, but he could throw his back out tomorrow. So for me, I'd bank on the guy that's a little bit more durable, and I'd try to reach an agreement with Schwarber just because with the DH, you can get some quality years out of him. I wouldn't give him like a Trey Turner 18-year contract, but a couple of years, 2-3 years, I would be willing to go with it. And it's very enticing to keep Ranger based on how the starting pitching is, but I think he's a gamble. I hope that's not the case. I hope his back is solid, but he's proven time and again that flares up at the worst possible time. So I'd sell high.
Yeah, Shawn, me and you, we're big Ranger guys.
This is not an easy decision, not one that anybody I know wants us to make. So if you make one decision or another, it's not a slight on whoever we're moving on from.
No.
This is a lose-lose situation.
Yeah,
Unless we decide to find the money to keep both of them.
Oh, it's most certainly lose-lose, and it's not a decision I would want to make. I mean, if there's an opportunity to keep both of them, you keep both of them. Like I said, you got question marks. You got question marks with Aaron Nola. You got question marks with Luzardo. He's been a little bit up and down. You look, we all are extremely excited for Painter. You don't know what he's going to be yet. You just have some of these question marks where you got a relatively young Ranger Suarez for the second year in a row now, pitching for at least a majority of the season at an extremely high level. You don't get rid of that. If you're a competitive team, you don't get rid of a guy that's relatively young that could be a starting pitcher, a stud starting pitcher for a number of years. You hold on to that. And then the same can be said about Schwarber. The universal DH is a massive thing. Like I've made my thoughts on it pretty clear. Obviously, it's greatly benefited the Phillies. If I had a choice and I was in charge of baseball, I'd get rid of the DH entirely. I don't like the DH. The whole strategy of baseball of, all right, Cliff Lee, he's pitched a 0 earned run outing, but we don't have a run either, and it's the 7th inning, and we got one guy on and nobody out, and here comes Cliff Lee. Do we leave him out there because he's dealing? He's only at 75 pitches. Do we? I love that strategy. It's the whole thing, and the whole stupid thing with the shift. If I want to put 9 players between first and second base, I should be able to put every single one of those out there. You hit it between second and third. Anyway, I'm getting off track here. Kyle Schwarber, DH, can be in the position for a long time. Obviously, can change the game with one swing of a bat. The power this guy's able to generate with that short, compact swing is unreal. Gun to my head, I got to pick one or the other. I'm probably going Schwarber just because even though there's unknowns, you have enough starting pitching right now that you can do really well with 3 strong starters and 2 that you just don't quite know yet. And at worst or at best, he's playing once every 5th games. And at worst, he's missing a period of time because he hasn't had a complete season in, I think, 4 years. He hasn't had an injury-free season in 4 years. So you're probably going Schwarber there. But I want to kind of flip the script here and ask you guys a question in relation to the Phillies. And this is something obviously none of us hope to have happen, but it is something I do want us to think about because I think there's a lot of merit to it. Worst case scenario, let's say Harper has some kind of regression with his injury, misses significant time, or they just really start shitting the bed, really start playing poorly, and it just doesn't look like it's going to be the year. I mean, obviously, the super advanced analytic nerds in Vegas and everything say the Phillies only have like a 3.5% chance of winning the World Series. That means nothing to me. But to them and to some people, it means like, hey, this might not be the year. JT's up on contract this year. Rangers up on contract this year. Schwarber's up. Castellanos is up next year. We got Aiden Miller, Justin Crawford. We got some young guys. We have some young talent and everything. Do you consider the fact that this is a pretty good seller's market? Do you consider saying, hey, send us your absolute best offer for Ranger, Schwarber, JT, Casty, any of these guys, and say, you know what? Our window with this exact core is probably closed. We still have Turner, who, for the ups and downs, is having a pretty solid year. We got Harper, who, when healthy, is one of the best players in baseball. We've got some young guys. Obviously, I hope they re-sign Bohm, but he's also up. He could possibly be a guy you throw into those trades. I do think he could be a part of this future as well. What do you guys do? Do you say, you know what, screw it? As long as you make the dance, you have a chance, just like we saw 3 years ago where they made it in one game, went on a run, went to the World Series, should have won it? Or do you say, yeah, you know what, makes a little bit of sense. This window is probably going to close. Let's get a king's ransom for these guys while we can, because we've seen players like in other teams, in the Flyers and everything, where they hold on to guys too long. We've seen previous years where the Phillies hold on to guys too long. They get nothing in return for them, and we go in this big drought.
So I am at a bit of a crossroads, if you will. So it ultimately depends. I would not be upset if the one move that John Middleton made at the deadline was to trade, say, Casty for some sort of, I don't know, get something in return for him, or somebody that it seems like we have somebody up in the farm system that could step up. Or if they wanted to ultimately move Trey into the outfield, right, that they could pull some infielder, right, up from AAA or what have you to come and play. But it really depends on who it is. I got to tell you, we've been pretty hard on JT. I don't like what's behind JT anymore.
No,
I don't. So until you have that plan set in place where there's a clear successor to that position, this team is still good enough to compete year in and year out. So I don't want to completely punt it unless you think that ultimately the replacement value of the guy that's underneath him is going to be damn close, all things considered, when it comes to the money. Right, because if you get rid of a guy like that, then yeah, I mean there is going to be $23 million that you no longer on the hook for next season. Are you going to go out and sign a guy? Like I don't know who's going to be out there this free agency period that you're going to be able to lock down with that money. So honestly, it really depends on who it is. I honestly, some of these guys that we keep saying we're going to get a king's ransom for, I'm not looking at who is we're going to be getting in return, because it seems like it's always underwhelming. Like the teams know it's going to be an 80 game rental and a push for the postseason, right? So I wouldn't expect to get a bona fide stud in return. You get a guy that might work out. You get a bench player that you might want to throw at first base instead of Buddy Kennedy every now and again. You're not going to get a long-term starter, like a quality plus starter. So you're really just looking at what are you going to be able to, how much money are you going to be able to free up for free agency next year, and hopefully not have a drop off this year that ruins your chances of making it to the World Series.
Obviously, you're not going to get an all-star current MLB starter, but you don't think we'd get one of a team's top prospects for Ranger or Schwarber?
No.
Really?
I mean, their contracts are going to be up in 80 games no matter what. So it's what are they going to give in return? If they think that Schwarber is the missing piece, then we get, their number 6 and number 9th ring prospect, sure, right? So what are those? Are they positions of needs? I don't know. Maybe, but I would bank more on spending the $20 million he makes every single year than getting something in return at that very moment, because you see them come and go all the time as well, or they never really pan out to much.
Yeah. Doc, what are your thoughts on that? I gave a very long-winded question.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think in this era, it's a lot easier to get in the playoffs, and as you saw from a couple of years ago, if you get hot at the right time, it's very hard to just mortgage your season for something down the road. And like you said, we're not getting a good return on investment with these. So I'd have to really be in a situation where it looked like we weren't going to go anywhere before I'd even consider these. And then I'd say, wow me with the offer. Like I said, I'd be a very reluctant seller. And I think the most effective deal is when you don't really have to make the deal. So I think that you can sit back and kind of get everybody's best and final and then decide. But I don't think, you're basically putting a lot of faith in your prospects and what potentially you can get via trade. And I don't think at this point any of those is significantly better than what you have. So I say, I don't think by the end of the year these guys are going to totally be busts. So I would be very reluctant to make any trades at this point. And that's just my clinging to the end of an era, so to speak. And it's not like these guys are on long-term deals. It's not like we're dealing with a Ryan Howard who's spent and we still have 5 years left on him. So, my opinion is I'd try to hold pat unless somebody wowed me with an offer.
Yeah, I'm in that camp where, hey, if you come out, and again, this is only if they have just something where it looks like they're not going to have a good run. They get an unlucky injury, something like that. If the team stays healthy, run it out. Try to see what you can do, get hot at the right time. But if there is something where it's like, hey, maybe we consider selling, it's got to be something where you're wowed. Where it's like, that you got to take that. Also, 76ers, 20 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah.
And the pick is in.
Here we go.
And the pick
Breaking
is
news.
in. Ladies and gentlemen, with the third pick in the 2025 NBA draft, your Philadelphia 76ers will select a player shortly. They're walking out to the podium. I don't know.
All right. So one last little point to that before we get to the Sixers reaction. They chatted about talking about getting Schwarber re-signed before the season began.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that they were going to pick up talks after the season. How far away are they? Is Schwarber's camp saying they want $33 million a year? Then okay. So guess what, buddy? You're gone at the deadline, right? If we are $10-12 million apart, and they say, no, we're absolutely not signing for anything less than 4 years at $32 million a year. Okay, we got to make a business decision here. He's been playing great. He's playing above his contract, right? So, we'll talk a little bit more after react to the Sixers pick.
They're still wasting their time getting out to the podium, so we have a second here. But no, I would have to imagine they're relatively far apart. Oh, here comes Adam Silver to announce your Philadelphia 76ers pick. Is this still the draft song? Ooh. Wrong sport, or is that still the draft tone?
Oh.
VJ Edgecombe, guard, Baylor.
Yep.
So they don't go Ace Bailey. He was a bit of a more risk, but people said, you can't pass up on that kind of athletic talent, that kind of just prospect there. They go guard out of Baylor and VJ Edgecombe. Initial reactions, gentlemen.
How many guards does this team have?
17.
Is this like the three towers or whatever it was we had 10 years ago, just in point guards?
I think the advantage of this guy is a little bit bigger. He's a little better defender, and I think he's good with Maxey. I mean, it's like, where's McCain? McCain instantly becomes the backup point, and that's probably what he would be anyway. I think he's young. I think he's a little bit more polished. But I think that, this is what annoys me the most about the NBA. It's such a player-driven league, and someone throws a temper tantrum and signs up in a Mets uniform and refuses to try out, and all of a sudden he's not selected. I would definitely want a wing over any guard, but unfortunately they read the tea leaves and realized they'd have another disgruntled stuff, and the Sixers don't exactly have the best track record with first-round draft picks, Embiid and Maxey aside. So. Yeah. I mean, I think that ideally this team is screaming for a wing, but he wasn't the guy based on attitude or whatever, So I think he's a good pick. I think they got a solid player. It's just a question of, how he fits into our system.
Yeah, you have to imagine they did their homework. I mean, when there's 20 seconds left on the clock before the pick comes in, they're trying to trade that pick. They're trying to get something. They didn't love anybody. They wanted something here. He's 6'4", 195. He was on the Bahamian national team. Gotta love that. Gave a lot of his NIL deal to fund a scholarship for his school in the Bahamas. So, just a stand-up guy. Developing shooter, as they're saying here on ESPN. Yeah, it's
Ben Simmons was a developing shooter.
Nice.
Keep that in mind.
That's what we needed to hear.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I was always a little hesitant on Ace Bailey, and look, anybody knows me knows I don't watch a whole lot of college basketball. I really don't. It's just not my jam. I'm more of an NBA jam guy. And something that concerned me is, look, you got two potential top 3 picks over at Rutgers.
Not potential, they were.
Well, Ace Bailey's not.
Well, Ace Bailey wasn't. Yeah, you're right. My bad. Sorry.
You got 2 potential top 3 picks. Ace Bailey very likely can go here to Charlotte. 2 top 5 picks in the NBA. Why didn't you make the tournament? Like, and it's looking, people that really follow college basketball, NBA and everything could be like, you are so ignorant. Like, that's not how it works, blah, blah, blah. But like, you're telling me you got 2 top 5 NBA draft picks and you didn't even sniff the tournament? Concerns me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Ace is they always said he's a project. He's raw talent, So, yeah, raw talent's great. And I think that, I think the Sixers being a more refined team doesn't need the raw talent. They need the let's get good quickly talent, because they're not the Charlotte Hornets. They are somebody that, when healthy, and especially in next year's Eastern Conference with no Tatum, no Halliburton, there is a legitimate shot for them to get to at least the conference finals, if not win the conference, if everybody's healthy. And that's a huge if with this team, but you want to pick somebody that's more, I think, that's more NBA ready.
Fair.
Because how much out of Embiid are we going to get? How many more years?
Right now, it doesn't seem like any.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Well, parts of a year,
Yeah, and again, like I think Embiid's a great guy. I think he's an incredible talent. You can't necessarily blame the guy. I mean, he's just incredibly unlucky. But if healthy, if they can somehow get somebody to take Paul George, if they can, the rest of the team stay healthy, like you said, they're a good team. They're a good team that has now got a little bit of depth, which is something that they've really struggled with. So we'll have to see what they do here. It's tough. The whole team around Philadelphia that isn't the Birds of the Phillies. It's just tough right now. It's a mucky, murky future for the 76ers, for the Flyers. And then, we're just talking about the future potentially with the Phillies, with so many big names potentially leaving this team in the offseason. Shawn, you got any thoughts? Or you want to go head back to the Phillies? What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, I think you guys are oversimplifying it. I think the Sixers have a little more work to do, and the East still isn't going to be like a layup for them just because we've got a couple studs missing the rest of the year. I mean, I just think this team just lacked cohesion completely,
Yeah.
especially the latter half of the season. And context is important, but I don't know. I don't know. We'll see how this plays out in 2-3 years from now. I don't have a ton of faith in this organization, no matter what. I kind of just walked into the night going, whatever the Sixers decide to do, it'll ultimately be the wrong move.
Well, I solidly agree with that. I think that's the truth, but
yeah,
I'm trying to get a silver lining to all this, but you're right.
Yeah, I mean, Daryl Morey's a moron. The whole Paul George thing was just a terrible, terrible decision. I had people in the chat. I was texting some listeners and all asking them like, "Hey, what are your initial thoughts and everything?" And pretty much the overwhelming thing was like, "Yeah, I don't hate the pick. I would have loved more than anything for them to use the pick and Paul George's contract just to get it off the books, get him gone, and maybe get a little bit of something in return for him." But like, it's kind of like, but he's okay. Like, it's a good pick. I would have liked them trade down. I would have liked for them to package Paul George with it. I really like the Colin Murray Boyles guy. He's apparently the best defensive player in the draft. Again, this is just stuff I'm hearing from them. I don't know about college basketball. I really don't. But some of the initial reactions are just kind of like, okay.
Well, the thing is, between like 3 and 10, probably the players are interchangeable. So if you could have traded down, I think that's what they were trying to do, get a little bit further down for somebody who really wanted one of these players. But it didn't work out as usual. So,
yep.
Evan Turner, too.
Today's episode is brought to you by White Glove Car Wash. Man, it feels like we just never get a break. We go from salt and brine on the roads right into pollen season, and our car never seems to be as clean as we needed it to be. That's where White Glove steps in. They're offering unlimited car wash packages for as low as $20 a month. You can take your car in daily and make sure that it is shiny, squeaky clean like you always want it to be, and not have to worry about cleaning it yourself. And with the satisfaction guarantee, you will never have to worry about it being just right. With locations in Delaware, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey, you are never too far from the glove. Family owned and operated for over 40 years, go out and support small businesses this year and support your car by giving it the best car wash possible. Just ask your phone to take you to White Glove Car Wash and be taken to the nearest location to you, and let them give you the best car wash you have ever experienced.
All right, back to the Phils. Schwarber, you got any other final thoughts on him? We were kind of in the camp of, I was saying before the pick was made, they've got to be relatively far off on the contract, because they had made a statement saying, hey, we sent them our number. They said nope, and we said, all right, we'll talk to you another time. If it was close, they'd have been like, all right, let's continue talking for another day or two. Like, we're close enough where we can get this hashed out. Like, we don't need to give it the whole year. If they're within 3 million of each other, they can get that hashed out, make a deal happen. If it's got to be closer to like 5 to 10 million off.
Well, don't you feel that now that number's getting wider because of the season he's having? I mean, he started off in preseason. You don't know what we were going to get. And the way he's basically carrying this team, that gap is becoming very much larger than it was when they ended this the first time. So
it's a risk you take.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if we get rid of his power, I mean, I did the math.
He may never hit a home run again.
Yeah, I mean, without him, if we replace him with just a simply average hitter next year in terms of home run production, right, we would be 27th in baseball in home runs. Like, it's him or it's nobody, right? So, I mean, just to kind of answer the question that I was posing earlier, I mean, context is important. We've got a couple guys coming up now in terms of pitching. We've got guys locked in, and we even have we might be setting ourselves up to extend Luzardo. We don't really know. We might let him go. I think we've got this year and next year of team control, but there's certainly more options there in regards to pitching, and any one person seems to be replaceable versus this power hitter, right? Yeah. So anybody that we try to replace him with, that we're going to try to get that same productivity. I mean, we talk about what kind of contract he's going to go for. What is a free agent going to cost us, we don't have anybody in our farm system that is hitting with any sort of power.
No.
Right? We got a bunch of smaller guys coming up right now, and that's fantastic, but we've got nobody that hits dingers.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, ultimately, if you have to move one, you move on from Ranger, and then I just buy his jersey for whatever team he ends up playing with, because I'm going to be rooting for that guy the rest of his career.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Gotta love Ranger. No, it's a tough position that they're in, but it's the risk you take when you don't get the deal done before the season. You roll the dice. You hope that he has just a kind of a middling season where it's like, all right, cool. You had a good season. Not incredible, certainly not bad. What are we thinking here? But when he's, like you said, carrying the team, the only guy offering consistent power to this team, and really having a decent average compared to previous years and everything, that price has gone up. And he knows that this is going to be one of the last big contracts he has. And he knows that he's got a lot of leverage with the DH not going anywhere. He can go AL, NL, doesn't matter. Any team would want Kyle Schwarber on their team. And so if they do let him go to free agency, it's going to be tough. They're going to have to really rely on the fact that he just wants to be in Philly, because I don't think they'd be able to match what other teams are going to offer him.
And that's why ultimately I think they both end up walking at the end of the season.
No, and I don't think that they won't be able to. I just think they won't. Not that they won't be able to. They just won't do it. This is a cheap owner that just talks a big game but rarely backs it up.
Well, he's not cheap. He is just spent up to his limit, which isn't cheap, but it's
it's not. Yeah, I mean, they have one of the highest. That's fair.
We splurged on some guys we should not have splurged on, right? I mean, we've talked for the last couple seasons about that Taiwan Walker deal. The Trey Turner deal, honestly, so far has been fine. That NOLA extension's probably going to bite us in our ass hard, right? So, I mean, you just got to pick and choose your battles, and when your money's spent, your money's spent. I don't know, this is still the third or fourth highest payroll in all the MLB. I mean, it's an expensive squad. It just leaves us with no space, if you will, to spend anything more out without going crazy over the luxury tax.
Yeah, cheap was an unfair word for me to use, but he's also his mouth is writing checks that his ass isn't cashing. Like he's talking a big game and he's not going out there and doing what they need to do. I mean, the rumors were they made a huge offer to Yamamoto and he just didn't want to come onto the East Coast. Like there's
okay. Oh, that also is probably just like politicking. Okay. Yes, to asking the Japanese player that is going to only play on the West Coast about a deal is just to say we did offer them a deal. That's just posturing.
That's
right?
I had the same exact thought. Also, Ace Bailey slide continues. Con Canoopel goes.
No, he didn't want to go to 5 different clubs. He didn't want to get drafted before like number 6 to the Wizards, right? The guy's willingly losing like $10 million or something like that just in the valuation of the contracts between those spots because he didn't want to go to one of those markets. I think it's crazy the amount of like arrogance coming from his team in regards to this whole draft process. It's insane.
Yeah, he might fall to the 5th round like Shadur. There's only 2 rounds in the NBA, guys. I do know enough about that.
Well, that's the modern athlete.
Yeah.
They believe they're hype. They believe they're hype. And it's a shame because, I mean, look, these guys are doing themselves damage and their yes men are not telling them this is not the attitude. This is not what people want to see when they're selecting somebody for a job. Because at the end of the day, that's what it is. And if someone came with that attitude to my office, see ya. I don't care how good you are.
They're kids, These are 18-year-olds. They're saying, listen, we're going to make sure you get more money than God. Like, so I don't even fault the players necessarily. It's like, who's ever been in this spot before, especially at such a young age, but like their agents are just, I don't get it.
Blows my mind.
This is the only big contract you are guaranteed to get in this league.
Yep.
So if you lose that $15 million because you didn't want to go number 3 and you wanted to go to the number 7 team, and then you tear your Achilles like every other player and you don't recover from it quite like anybody else, you're out.
Yeah. Tough.
You could be Evan Turner. You can't enjoy the smell of your own farts a little too much.
So Doc, speaking of Achilles in the NBA, Obviously, you've watched NBA for a little bit longer than I have. It didn't
Yeah.
seem like it was as prevalent
Yeah.
back in 80s, 90s, early 2000s, as it seems
Yeah.
like every single player is bound to tear their Achilles at some point now, starting the past 7 years. You got any thoughts about what might be leading to that?
Yeah. It's going to sound like a pornographic movie, but longer, faster, harder. I mean, they're playing longer seasons, they're playing a faster game, and they're playing harder. And eventually something's got to give. And I think that's the impetus. If you say, why is this happening? I'd say these athletes are in the best condition. They have been way better shape than the athletes in the 80s and the 70s. But the difference is they're playing way more games. They're playing at a much higher intensity. Everybody wants to see the highlight, the posterizing, the jumping, all these high impact moves. And the season's so long. I mean, it's almost the end of June, and the NBA champion was crowned 3 days ago, or whatever it was, 4 days ago. So these are long seasons. There is no, and some of these guys play year round. You're in the Olympics, you're doing this, you're doing that, you do all this stuff. So there isn't a lot of an off season, not a lot of R&R. And I think just the intensity of the game. I mean, defense is like an afterthought. Guys are just driving the lane, pushing. Everybody wants the fast-paced game, and this is the casualty, I feel. I think it's just too much.
Ace Bailey goes to Utah Jazz.
He looks very Mormonish. He'll do great out there. So careful what you wish for. You don't want to be in Philly. You wind up in Utah.
Have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
They've been great for years.
Yeah.
The guy went to Rutgers. What was his problem with the Sixers?
That's the crazy thing. And now look what you got.
Yeah, you got the Cleveland Browns of the NBA.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that this is why, I mean, and if you look at it, it is almost like an epidemic. I mean, the amount of these that are happening is so much greater frequency than there was in the past. And I think that's a big factor.
Yeah.
And I think you can work with conditioning and all that, but I think these athletes are in great condition. I just think it's the demand on them and their bodies is intense.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, even though the intensity and everything has gone up, like, you have to imagine that the sports medicine, the preseason workouts, before the stretching, the recovery, everything seems to be at the just top that it's ever been in the history, but it just still goes. Like, Wilt Chamberlain for seasons averaged over 48 minutes a game because he played every minute of every game, and then he played into overtime whenever they went into overtime. But like you said, the intensity of the games that Wilt Chamberlain was playing, and Wilt still arguably one of, if not the greatest basketball player of all time. This isn't a knock on him in the slightest, but the intensity was not the same then as it is now. These guys are just nonstop. The pace of the game is just go, 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 go. It's incredible.
And if you can mock basketball in the 60s, set passes and all that stuff, but the explosiveness wasn't there. And with explosive activities comes failure. There's a fine line between all that was awesome and, oh my God, what just happened? And I think that a lot of these guys, and it's funny because it's not, a lot of times it's almost like a fatigue thing. It's like they do something spectacular and then they're dribbling up the court and boom, it happens. And I think unfortunately Halliburton was in a horrible position because I think if it was any other time than the NBA finals, they would have rested him. But he wanted to play, and that was the risk you take. Just like BG playing in the Super Bowl, if it wasn't the Super Bowl, he never would have been on that field.
No.
So I think that's the same thing, and it's unfortunate. I mean, Halliburton was great. He made that series exciting. He made it close. It was a great series, but unfortunately, you got to listen to your body. Your body's telling you something, and you can have the best scientists, best sports guys in the world, and it doesn't matter. If it's damaged to a certain point, it's eventually going to break. And that's what happened. And like I said, he probably would have been a guy that would have just shut it down for the rest of the year. If this wasn't the playoffs, he would have been fine the next season. And now he has a season off, unfortunately.
No, and when you brought up with BG in the Super Bowl, I think is a great segue into my next question here with the Birds. How impressive was it with not only BG, but Nolan Smith out there? You had Cam Jurgens out there. You had Landon Dickerson out there struggling with some pretty significant injuries, battling through it. Like, how impressive was not only that they were able to play the whole game, but play at the level that they did.
I mean, it is truly impressive. I mean, nobody knew that Nolan Smith tore his triceps till after the game, and
yeah,
you couldn't tell. That guy was still playing high energy, still playing violent. It's a testament to his dedication, his grit, and maybe a little adrenaline. So he got through. I mean, you're in the Super Bowl, you're winning big. That helps a lot. But I mean, he played hard the whole game. I don't even know if the training staff knew till after. He probably didn't even say anything. I don't know for sure. That's just speculation. But I think he had that injury and he played through it. I mean, Cam Jurgens having a back injury and Dickerson having a back and knee injury. And it's not just that they played. If you watch some of the plays that landed Dickerson in the Super Bowl, it was incredible. He was twisting, bending backwards, hitting guys. I mean, and to have a bad back to the point where you're getting neurologic damage means that back is singing to you. Your body wants to tell you when something's wrong. And the fact that they played through that, no matter what sort of ritual they did beforehand or whatever treatment they received, just the fact that they were on the field. And you remember the NFC Championship, they didn't know who was playing where because everybody was so banged up. And to turn that around in 2 weeks and play probably one of the greatest games in Eagles history is a testament to those guys and the staff and everybody, but them especially. Getting on that field is nothing short of incredible. And to play at the level they did, that's the truly impressive thing. These weren't guys that were just standing there and you're like, oh, the late years of Jason Peters. He's out there, but is he really making much of a difference? These guys were making a difference.
No, exactly. And also, I think you made a mistake. You said one of the greatest games in Eagles history. It might have been one of the greatest games in NFL history.
That depends on who you ask.
That's fair.
Maybe not in Missouri, but,
Shawn, I know you don't watch games live. Wheeler struggling early in Houston here. 40 pitches in, nobody out in the second inning, already giving up a run. 2 men on as well. Nice.
He started slow as last start, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, a lot of pitches, and then he kind of settled in a little bit. So he's got 2 men on, nobody out, 3-2 count, and still a 3-2 count. Fouled it off. Anyway, no, incredibly impressive what they're able to go do out there. I want to touch briefly on the Flyers as their draft is coming up. They even with them trading the 45th pick, they still have a ton of picks in this draft. The marquee one being the 6th overall pick. If you thought I didn't watch college basketball, I obviously don't watch amateur or college, or not amateur, but like just low level or college hockey. So I really can't speak too much to the prospects. We do have some guys lined up to touch on who they draft this weekend and to talk about the prospects that they are going to be obtaining here. But I do want to briefly touch on Trevor Zegras, a young guy they traded with Anaheim for. They gave up Trevor Poling, 45th pick and a future 4th round pick. You guys were asking, and listeners are asking, hey, put this trade in terms of NFL trades. And it's hard to say because Trevor Zegras is a guy that has potential, is young, hasn't quite shown everything yet, but has shown more than a number of guys. And like in NFL, young players don't really get traded. I was trying to think of like maybe a free agent move like Mekhi Becton. Jets gave up on him, had a ton of potential, but really never played all that well. And he showed a ton of potential, and now he's a very good player, and he's still very young, similar age, everything like that. But I can't really think of like hey, what happened in the NFL when this player did what they did? I mean, and I'm just trying to think of even just a young player with potential that teams are still excited about, but hasn't yet shown something crazy. I mean, is it too crazy to say that Jameson Williams hasn't had an incredible career yet, but still has a ton of potential? Nobody thinks that anybody's going to come in and take the number 2 spot, Lions wide receiver from JMO. Like maybe that could be somebody I would compare him to if somebody traded for Jameson Williams. Younger guy, has a lot of potential, but still has already had a relatively good career.
I mean, I can't really comment on how good his career was with Anaheim, so I don't really know, comparatively who would be that. I think Jameson Williams is probably more successful in the NFL than he was in Anaheim.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 186 points in only 268 games, like for a young player.
Well,
So I mean, that's averaging what 60 something points a year. Like that's not nothing. We had years. I looked up. I was driving down to the beach recently with a buddy, and we were just looking up, the old Dave Hackstall led Flyers and everything. Phillies end up getting out of the inning. I think it was like 5 pitches later from when they had 0 outs. They had 3. But anyway, we were looking back there, and we were looking at the top scorer. And I mean, obviously, Drew had a couple of years in there where he, was running for MVP, where he had a 100-point season, stuff like that. But most of those years, their top point scorer had like 67 points, like nothing crazy impressive. So getting a 24-year-old that has 186 points in 268 games, I'm not mad at it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's good they're going young in that regard because you got Michkov and you've got the other Russian that was a Jet.
I know. Yeah, I know.
But so you've got a lot of young talent in there, and it's interesting to see where they put him in terms of what line and all that. So I think it's promising. It's enticing. I mean, I think if I put in Eagles, because he's going to Philadelphia, I'd say this is kind of like Bryce Huff. You got a nice young talent comes in, and he may be great. He may do wonderful things, and he may fizzle out. So we don't know.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm very curious to see what comes out with that. A buddy of mine, I texted him right when the trade was, and I was like, "Hey, what are your thoughts?" And he was like, "Hey, very good player, not a guy you build a team around, but certainly a guy that you don't hate having on your team." And then Doc, you made a good point before we even started the episode. It's a position of need. I mean, he's a center. Yeah. The Flyers need centers right now. They don't have just standout every line centers, and they went out and they got one. And they got a very good player, 45th pick, when they already have so many other picks, and then a 4th-round pick. Yeah, if you look at the NFL history or NHL history, and you look at 4th-round picks, you're going to find some Hall of Famers in there. But for the most part, 4th-round picks aren't your star players, so that's a really nothing to me. And then Trevor Poling, don't know enough about him. He's not as good as Zegras. I know that.
Yeah. I think you don't. I think you're not losing a lot.
Ryan Poling. I keep saying Trevor just because of Zegras.
You're not losing a lot.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Wow. Otto Kemp just hit a ball. Had to hit it like 107 off the bat, and third baseman jumps straight up in the air, spears it right out of the air. I mean, he hit this thing like a rocket off the bat. That's a shame. Yeah, so very, very similar amount of games played. Ryan Poling in nearly the same amount of games, 95 points compared to Zegras' almost 170. So you're getting about double the amount of points for a guy that's 2 years younger in Zegras. And obviously we gave him the 45th pick and 4th-round pick.
Yeah, like I said, time will tell.
Shawn, your original camera melted. You're back on here. Any thoughts?
I had another one.
Yeah, big camera.
Do I have any thoughts on the NHL draft coming up, or
any thoughts before we wrap things up here? I mean, it's any thoughts before final thoughts.
I mean, listen,
your second to final thought.
You just mentioned Otto Kim getting kind of robbed of a base hit. This guy's good. This guy's legit. We need to be thinking about what we're going to do long term in regards to getting him as much playing time and getting him to become an everyday player. I don't know what position yet, right? Yeah. But he seems to be taking pretty well to first. Obviously, he plays third well, but the guy can hit. Yeah. Right. I'm getting real Luis Arias vibes almost, but with a little more speed because the guy's actually pretty fast. I was looking at his baseball savant. He's top 30 or 33, 34 in the league, something like that. So, I mean, there's 30 teams in the league, so he's vying for that top spot in most ball clubs as far as fastest base runner, and it's deceptive.
Yeah, very deceptive. You don't look at him and think speed. Also, I was damn close. I said 107. It was 106 off the bat, but just too low of a launch angle right at third baseman.
He doesn't swing and miss. For a guy that's just now coming up to the bigs, you would expect some of this stuff to kind of catch up with him. It hasn't.
Yeah.
The guy's got it. The guy can hit for contact. Absolutely. And it seems like he's got warning track power for whatever that's worth. It seems like he's been due a couple times. So I don't know. I've been high up on him. We haven't had a chance to talk too much positivity, right? And we're Captain Negatives over here, even when Joey's not, when he's taking the night off. But
yeah,
I feel good about him. I wanted to get that out there. Big Otto Kemp guy. All right.
there you go. There you go. Want to ask you one quick thing before final thoughts in relation to Otto Kemp. I'm a big Bohm guy. I do hope they sign him after this year or during this year, whatever. I think he could be a valuable part of this team. But then we are kind of at a logjam in this infield with Aiden Miller coming up. He seems to be, ready sooner rather than later. Is there any world with Cassie getting on to the final year of his deal here? Is there any world in which Bryce Harper moves back to the outfield? Alec Bohm slides over to first and Otto Kemp goes to third, or Aiden Miller goes to third, or Otto Kemp goes to left, or
I think he's been vocal about saying, hey, listen, I'll go out into the outfield, right? And I believe him. Like, I believe he would be very content, happy, productive, right? If they send him back out in the right field. It's not for Bohm. It's not to keep Bohm around, right? I don't know what's the move that makes it happen. It might be Kemp saying, listen, I'll go over to third, and we move on from Bohm entirely. If any of these guys coming up, if Aiden Miller, if Crawford's the real deal, like, somebody's got to get shuffled around. Like, we already talked about Trey Turner, maybe even going into center field, right? Harper goes out in the right. I don't see Bohm.
Trey Turner has the range for the outfield. He does not have the arm for the outfield.
Turner?
Yeah, his arm sucks.
I know. I mean, it's a little hard to tell what a relay home is going to look like, but
yeah, it's fair.
At this point, I haven't seen anything that strictly says no. I mean, listen, we got Casty out there that seems like he's always running at 60% speed.
Oh,
he's
no Juan Soto.
He's no Juan Soto. All right. But I honestly, I feel like if Trey Turner was our center fielder right now, we would forgive him for any sort of defensive woes. You're not seeing a ton of the big arm, gun him down at home coming from center field. You're seeing the flying across the field, making jumping, diving catches. These days, the guy's not gunning anybody out at home or even at third base, say. So, I think long-term, he probably is the solution back there. I think long-term, people are going to get shuffled around, and there's going to be a couple of guys that aren't going to be a part of this team. And I think Bohm ultimately is just another guy. In 10 years, we're going to be kicking like a hacky sack around, and we're going to be yelling random baseball player names, and one of them is going to go Alec Bohm, and we're all going to go Alec Bohm. Yeah, I remember him. That's exactly what kind of player Bohm is going to be.
Wow, that's so disrespectful.
It's not disrespectful. It's just not. I mean, he's not Hall of Really Good. He's just another. He's going to be another guy.
That's messed up. He's a very good ball player. Very good ball player. Also, we had Schwarber just hit a ball 108, also an out. So we had 106 out, 108 out, and then the one hit of the inning was a 77 mile per hour bloop.
It's baseball, baby.
That's baseball. I was just gonna say that's baseball for you,
right?
Yeah, Schwarber really lined one up, but it was 108 with a 9-degree launch angle. So, and it happened to be directly at the shortstop. Still, that's got to be scary coming at you.
I mean, how about Ranger yesterday fielding two balls at his face?
Yeah.
Right? Usually when two balls go at your face like that, you don't look as scared. But
jeez.
Final thought, Doc?
We're screaming for an editor in this edition. I, for one, like to welcome the Edgecombe era in Philadelphia.
There we go. So nice.
Yep.
So polite. The era of Edgecombe. Shawn, you got two balls and edging and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Listen, we're going to the rim, baby. Welcome to the best dunker in the draft, right? Edgecombe, welcome to the Sixers. That's all I got.
The next Mac McClung? Is that what you're saying?
No. Hey. He's
Hey,
unparalleled.
let's not get ahead of ourselves, all right?
Blue coat special, baby. That's Delaware's own, Matt McClung.
Yeah, darn right. Final thought. Looking forward to seeing what the Flyers do this weekend. Yeah, it's exciting. New era of orange, as they've said for 5 years.
Mhm.